My name's Tim. I'm a musician, a car collector, an automotive journalist, and a lover of all things automotive. I've bought and sold collectible cars for 2 decades, and I hope my experiences and my point of view helps you find the car of your dreams.
Hopefully you've already watched the D3 S8 video. Now let's cover the A8L W12. More bespoke. These cars are really, really, really rare. It depends on what year, but one of the years there's only like 50, other years there's like 120. But even worldwide, these are extremely, extremely rare cars. And I think that's because the regular 4.2 D3 is already a pretty great car. It's not a slouch by any means, but for that W12 experience, there really is nothing else like this. You could say that it's the Audi Flying Spur, and a lot of people that own these would say that. It's notorious as being one of the smoothest engines ever made, actually smoother than the famed Lexus 460, LS 460, LS 400. I probably should have looked that up before I said that. One of the smoothest engines of all time. And I was just having a conversation with another enthusiast about this. It's funny because the VR6, which this is essentially 2 VR6s, is not the last word in smoothness. And it's definitely a sweet engine, but in terms of smoothness, you wouldn't say the VR6 is this unbelievably smooth engine. The engineering on this engine is just absolutely second to none. And it's one of the things that makes this car completely unique. In terms of power, both the W12 and the S8 make 450 horsepower. Now, this being a long wheelbase, it's a little heavier and it's a little slower in the quarter mile, but again, we're talking like tenths of a second. And honestly, neither of these cars ultimately is about performance. Now in this age of electric cars, both are fine performers, but it's not like this is the fastest car ever made. It's definitely one of the smoothest cars ever made and one of the most interesting cars ever made. Now, in terms of what they share a lot of things inside and outside, including the transmission, but what's notable is they shift completely different. The A8 is smoother and more supple, and the S8 is definitely a very raw experience in comparison. They also have completely different gear ratios, and the gear ratios in this car are just set for cruising in the most unbelievable manner. Now, if you're shopping for a W12 and you're watching this video in 2025, or possibly even in 2026 or 2027, these cars are at the absolute bottom of the depreciation curve. If you want one of these cars, if you've ever suspected that you want one, now is the time to get one. This car was originally found on Facebook Marketplace, originally listed for like 10 grand, I think around 10 grand, and it just sat on there and sat on there and sat on there. This car was purchased for $1,200. I can't even take credit for that. I want to take credit for that, but it's all Ethan. The guy was just sort of done. He had a brand new M5, and I think that filled his fantasies of performance. And this had issues, and we were happy to take the issues on. Hilariously, most of the issues were down to the battery. Most of the issues with this car were down to the wrong size and an old worn out battery. Battery on these cars is very important. Battery on European cars in general. I mean, I could go on a rant about Giulias. Everyone complains about Alfa Romeo Giulias. They get imported and they sit on lots for months and months. The batteries go dead and they don't replace the batteries because the dealers are cheap. Anyways, like I said, I could rant all day long. In terms of fit and finish and build quality, I can't really tell you that the factory took it more seriously building these W12 cars, but there's definitely a built with love type of situation with these cars that isn't the case with the lesser 4.2 A8s. Now this one has leather wrap dash, leather wrap doors, a much higher spec, but you could get that on any A8. What I'd say is that the W12 cars, that it is shocking because they're so rare. There are certain parts that are very hard to come by and are not shared with other cars. So we'll go over that a little more in this video. But in terms of, you know, shock and awe, I think really the D3 long wheelbase with the W12 is kind of the daddy. These are the optional forged, polished wheels, which, you know, have kind of, they've made it through the time. I think you can see that it's setting kind of low. We set it low because I think Ethan is gonna decide to put it on Bentley wheels because he can and because it'll be cool. But it looks great on these. I mean, the 20-inch wheels on both of these cars, I think really set it off. And again, the long wheelbase, I think, is the perfect proportion on the D3. It just really, it speaks to me. And again, I think it is possibly the best looking A8 to date. So now let's take this one for a drive and see how it differs from the S8.
The A8L W12 rushes to 60 in a scant 5 seconds, 5.1 depending on the article you read. Could do the quarter mile on around 13.5, 13.6 at a little over 100, 106 miles an hour. So fleet, definitely for the time. Still, I think a very fun car to drive. It certainly keeps up. I mentioned earlier deferred maintenance. I think many German cars from this era, whether it's an S-Class Mercedes or an Audi A8 or even an Audi TT, really any German car from this era, deferred maintenance will hurt you. This car has a lot of complexity. Things to look out for are obviously, and I don't want to give too much away, but throttle bodies, throttle body actuators, can be an issue, and they're only shared with like one other car. I believe it's the W8 Volkswagen Passat. So there's some rarity with this car, and that's something to take into consideration. Additionally, you want to look at a Carfax. You want to know that things like the transmission have been serviced at least semi-regular intervals, as those are the kind of things that will ensure that this car is going to stay running for a long time. Oil changes and fluid changes in the diffs and transmission are important. As far as a lot of the electronics, those are shared with a lot of other Volkswagen and Audi products, so you're good there, but keep in mind this era wasn't exactly check engine light free. With dual pane glass, carpeted wheel wells, and all the niceties that come with the A8 in general, this car is silent on the road. This particular one has the solar panel roof, which runs the fans when you're not in the car, and honestly, it is a very luxurious vehicle. Well, sat here in the back of the A8L, it's a very comfy place. Be a great place to do business, a great place to be chauffeured around, a great place just to be. But you may be asking, why am I in the back of the A8L? Good question. Great question. And the reason is, when we got this car, it had a throttle body unity code, and this car, that's been a thing. Now, interestingly, when he first had it, we put a new battery in it, and that code went away for like 2,000 miles of mixed use. Highway, around town, heavy acceleration, light acceleration, all of it, no codes. And then it came back. And the code sort of led to, along with some other diagnosis, it led to the fact that potentially it needed a throttle body. So Ethan got a couple throttle bodies, put throttle bodies on it, and the code was still there. So then it looked like potentially one of the pigtails that plugged into the throttle body had been replaced, and we thought maybe that's the issue. Maybe it's the wiring. So Ethan actually did it himself, replaced the wiring. After that, it developed a misfire on that bank. And so maybe it's not wired right, maybe it is. I wanted to bring you this episode, and you know, typically I try to have the cars clean. I try to have them in such a way that, you know, they're mechanically like rocking, because I know you were going to say like, well, V10s and W12s can't be that reliable. And, you know, that's an interesting commentary, because I think they can be reliable, but it is a very rare car. First of all, they did not make very many of them. Second of all, because it was an inexpensive car for a while, you know, it's probably missed some maintenance cycles. One thing I will say is this car is built to an incredibly high standard. I think even a higher standard than the regular A8s, potentially even a higher standard than the S8. And when you look under the hood, a lot of quality products are under there. Everything's that should be metal is metal. Sensors are somewhat logically located. I think in terms of longevity, I feel pretty good about it. In terms of troubleshooting it right now, I felt like the way to go was to give you the real deal on this. It is not, when you have a whole bunch of cars, Ethan has a bunch of cars, I have a bunch of cars, and you tune in to hear what is the situation with the cars, or how do you get along with the cars? And this is the truth. Sometimes it's not fantastic. And this is one of those times where I think, with regards to the A8L, I know we're going to get to the bottom of it. I know it's not a real big issue, but I wanted to shoot you straight about it. Now, is it a great car to sit in and be driven around in? Absolutely. How is it performance-wise compared to the S8? That's interesting because performance times horsepower, all that stuff's really similar. The way they perform is totally different. First of all, air suspension tuning, compared car to car, this is set up so much softer. The S8 honestly would be my preference. Now both cars, as I mentioned, had been converted to coils. This one on an aggressive coilover setup. Is that the right call for this car? I think so. Ethan kind of bought this car with the intention of having a kind of VIP setup and bought some Bentley wheels for it. And we rode over 150 miles, my sister-in-law and I, in the back here with Ethan sort of acting as chauffeur. And we were super comfortable. We never got bounced around, anything like that. So, but as far as the stock tuning, the air suspension is much softer on this car. Now, what about performance? Well, interestingly, they have nearly identical 0 to 60 times, and they have nearly identical posted horsepower figures. Interesting. The way they make power is completely different. This car feels almost like an electric car. It has crazy torque everywhere. It has that freight train that people associated sort of like with the XJS back in the day. What I'd say is also similar to the XJS, especially when comparing to the S8, is the tuning on this very similar transmission to the S8 is completely different. It's very soft. The shifts are slower. Downshifts are not met with aggression. It is just a very chill car. And from that perspective, is that what you would want out of a W12? Probably. It's much closer to like a flying Spur in feel than it is to the S8. Personally, if it were going to be me, which would I pick? The cars honestly are in such different places that I don't even know that they would be in the same place as far as like what I would be picking. I think I would sort of say, if you're a performance Audi guy, the S8 is the answer. And this is not related in any way to that. They don't corner the same. They don't shift the same. They don't really accelerate the same. Although if you keep this one pinned, I would say, this one may have a slight advantage. It just feels like it never stops, whereas the S8 feels a little cammy. As far as like longevity, I think, like I said, I think these are well-built cars. Yes, you're going to have service costs, no question. I think overall, these cars are collector's cars. That could be potentially controversial, but I really see these cars as being once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to buy them very inexpensively now, to buy them with relatively low miles, hopefully from the original owner. If you get it from the 6th or 7th owner, there's probably a lot of deferred maintenance headed your way. There are some things on both cars that are engine-out services. There's a lot of O2 sensors on both cars. If you're really scared of doing some work yourself, these are probably not the car for you. If you're scared of big bills and just sending it to someone to maintain it, or if you have a good independent, I think long term, obviously, it's a complex car. It's an A8, especially if you want to keep the air suspension. This era air suspension, I would just not consider it to be on par with the modern Audi or Land Rover air suspension, or even Mercedes. I think all of those have kind of come quite a long ways. You got to think these cars were designed much earlier, sort of a product of the late 90s. Even though we think of these cars as kind of being in service quite a long time, into the mid-2000s. This car's a 2006, I believe. They were designed in the 90s, and some of those things with air suspension, if it's going to be a problem and it's not great. And in this car, it's so soft that, personally, a coilover option would be a choice that I would consider. Some of you will consider that to be absolutely horrifying to even hear. But what I'd say is to each his own, and Ethan's really enjoying this car, although he's not enjoying it right now. He will enjoy it more again shortly. And what I'd say is it'll never happen again. W12s in, flying Spurs, and, they've now deleted it from the Bentley lineup. And cool engines in here. They're naturally aspirated. It's just a very unique car. I don't think it's going to happen again. So if you want a V10 or a W12 Audi in your driveway, I think one of these is probably the answer. I love the D3 chassis. The rigidity on offer from this aluminum space frame is fantastic. And I really like the cars. I really have a soft spot for it. And that's really my 2 cents on it. Again, as far as which one is the right car for you, I think watching this review, you'll probably know the answer. It's very clearly either the S8 or the A8L W12, because I don't think even though the stats might lead you to believe they're similar cars, they're completely dissimilar. And yeah, so that's the review. Thanks for watching. So enthusiasts, I implore you, Audi made cars with V10s and W12s. They're like really cheap right now. You kind of owe it to yourself to try one. It's up to you. What's the worst that could happen? Again, thanks for watching. It really means the world.